Hey everyone, Dan here with Good Earth Water Gardens. In this video, I'm going to show how you can create a beautiful fountain like the one behind me in 10 simple steps that will add some great curb appeal to your home. Follow me along and let's get started. So let's go over a list of tools we'll need to install this fountain. We're going to want a digging shovel like a spade. You're going to want a small scoop shovel, scooping up that loose soil. You're going to want a tamper that'll help compact and flatten that ground below once we've excavated. And then it's always helpful to have a broom or a leaf blower for cleaning up. And then plus, having a wheelbarrow is pretty essential for storing some materials and excess debris. We've got some landscape fabric and some pins for anchoring down to the earth. You're also going to want a sharp knife or a pair of shears to cut the fabric. We're going to want a can of marking paint for marking our area for the reservoir. Not everybody has a professional foam gun, so you can just buy the foam that squirts out of a tube at a hardware store. You're going to want a rubber mallet or a dead blow hammer that helps compact and level areas. We're going to want a flathead screwdriver and a 5/8 inch clamp that'll help tighten the plumbing down to the pump. And we're going to want a level and some composite door shims, and that helps us keep the urn level and stable. And I almost forgot to mention, it's also really useful to have a measuring tape. We already do have some plants here, but don't feel like your existing landscaping is going to be limiting you in any way. We can move this stuff out of the way, and in this instance, we're going to transplant some of these bushes to open up this space a lot more. Now, I wanted to talk to you about the materials that we're using for this job here. In this box right here, we've got our aquascape rippled fountain urn, and then of course we have a pump, and then we've got our reservoir, and then we've got our decorative rock and gravel to kind of cover up those components. So I want to just show the basic setup of how this fountain works. It's super simple, super easy. So what we have is we have a reservoir, of course, down here below. This will be sunken in the ground. And then we've got the urn that sits on top of the reservoir. And all this will be covered up by some gravel. This is a good first step, is to figure out where you'd like your fountain piece. Before we start digging, we're going to want to know the dimensions of our reservoir. In this case, we have about 30 inches by 30 inches, and it's about 10.5 inches deep. And when digging our reservoir for the depth, we're going to want to go a little bit deeper to compensate for that layer of sand. So you'd be okay going at 11 or 12 inches. One of the handy things about this reservoir is that it has this access panel in case we ever need to service or even remove the pump. The pump just sits right down below, and the plumbing connects to it right here, which is very accessible and user-friendly. And then we have this notch right here in the basin, which is where our electrical cord runs out and can be very easily disguised. We've got our reservoir positioned in the spot where we want it. So now we're marking the space for the reservoir. Since we're going to have to take it up, it's ideal to get a can of spray paint, or you can even kind of eyeball it with a shovel or something. Notice that we've got plenty of room kind of here to adjust the reservoir front or back, and because of this pipe we were a little bit tight, so we overdug in this area, and that gives us plenty of flexibility to make adjustments. So you can see we're a little bit high in the back is what the bubble's telling us, and instead of trying to scrape some of this dirt out that we've already compacted, we're just going to get a bag of sand, open it up, and put a nice little layer down underneath, and that'll help us really smooth and level this out. with the level of the basin, and then you can really determine which way you need to go without having to constantly take that reservoir out. Now we've got everything leveled back out. We're going to set the reservoir in on our bed of compacted sand. And that should be pretty good. We'll double check it just to verify. Alright, before we start backfilling and getting dirt around this reservoir, we're going to take this piece of landscape fabric that we have and just kind of tuck it around the top of the reservoir. And that'll prevent any dirt or rocks, small sediments getting in here. And just to make sure that our basin is stable, every few layers or so, we want to make sure we take our dead blow or rubber mallet and compact around it, just to really get a good, solid foundation around the edges. You can see we've kind of just put the final touches on just getting everything smoothed out. We're getting ready to take our landscape fabric off the top of the basin. We've got our reservoir in the ground. Everything's compacted around it nice and tight. The area's nice and clean on top. So we're ready to get the urn on top of it and get the plumbing hooked up. We've got our urn set on top of our reservoir, putting the plumbing through the hole in the center of the urn and then through the hole in the center of the basin. Alright, so now we're getting ready to hook up our pump, and for this size reservoir and urn, we're going to use the Aquascape Ultra 800 water pump. So the pieces we are going to use for this are pretty simple. We're just going to take this one right here. This is a barb fitting. You can see right here it's got this adjustable valve here, and this allows us to adjust the flow of the water. And then it has the male adapter that just screws into the pump right here, tightens down. So once we get that nice and tight, our plumbing fitting, that tube, will fit over here, and we'll go ahead and clamp that down with our clamp to keep that nice and tight from popping off. So now we're setting our fountain pump into the reservoir here. And after you have the hose clamped over the barb fitting, take your clamp and just tighten it down just to give some extra security. Now what we're doing is leveling the top of the urn. I know that we leveled the reservoir down below, but this urn still has a little bit of a play to it. So what we're doing is taking these composite door shims that I talked about earlier, and wherever we're kind of rocking back side to side, we're just going to put a shim underneath the bottom of the urn to secure it. What we're going to do is take some pieces of landscape fabric that we've already pre-cut, and we're going to place them around the edges of the reservoir, and we're going to extend our rock line out onto the landscape fabric. One thing you want to make sure in this situation is not to cover up your pump cord. So now what we're doing is just anchoring the landscape pins into the ground, which secures the fabric and keeps it from going anywhere. So you just take a little hammer and then take your pin and start hammering it into the landscape fabric. So what we're going to do is take this expanding waterfall foam and put it around the base, and that's just going to cure and lock it into place a little bit better. If it ever gets bumped or shifted, it's not going to get unlevel or rocked out of place. Ready to start rocking it in. So as you can see, we have the final touches of mulch going around the reservoir, kind of in a regular shape with the rocks instead of a perfect square. And we're just going to cover up the rest of the piece of fabric with the mulch too. We've got our mulch down, just cleaning up a little bit, and we're about ready to turn our fountain on. There you have it, 10 easy steps and a little bit of elbow grease, and you can have a beautiful urn like this one anywhere in your yard. Let's hear what Andy and Brad have to say.
It's great, we love it. I can't wait till it cools down a little bit. We can open our windows and hear it from the inside. It'll be wonderful.
Yeah, I love the way it turned out. Great placement, and it looked obviously a lot better than I expected it to. So we're excited about it.
As always, I appreciate you watching, and if you found any value in our channel and would like to see more, hit that like button, smash that subscribe button, leave us a comment below, and we really appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on the next video.